The morning I saw a moving truck parked at the end of my driveway. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It recognized a threat. And when I spotted that familiar silver car behind it, the one I hadn't seen in 4 years, I knew this wasn't a visit. This was something else entirely. I was standing in my kitchen, holding a warm cup of coffee, watching the sun slowly rise over the lake. It was peaceful. The kind of peaceful you earn. The water shifted from dull gray to a soft golden glow. And for the first time in years, my chest didn't feel heavy. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what 38 years of hard work feels like. And then, everything changed. That truck, parked right at the end of my driveway. And behind it, that silver sedan. I froze. You don't forget a car like that. Not when it once blocked you inside your own garage. My daughter-in-law, Sandra. Even after 4 years, I recognized it instantly. I slowly placed my coffee mug on the counter. Carefully. My hands were steady. Strangely steady. Because inside, my heart was anything but. Let me take you back for a second. Because what happened that morning didn't start that morning. It started years ago. My son, David, he was never the clingy type. Even as a kid, he was independent. Packed his own school bag. Made his own lunch. Figured things out on his own. He had to. His father passed away when he was just 11. And after that, it was just the two of us. A small house in Columbus. Long hospital shifts for me. And a boy who grew up a little too fast. He never complained. He helped. Quietly. Without being asked. And I was proud of him. I still am. Even now. After everything. He met Sandra when he was 36. She was confident. Sharp. The kind of woman who walks into a room and somehow owns it without trying. At first, I liked her. I really did. I thought, finally, someone who'll push him forward. And I was right. She did push him. Just not in the direction I expected. The first sign? Christmas. About 8 months into their relationship. I had spent 2 full days cooking. Turkey. Stuffing. Sweet potato casserole. And that green bean dish David had loved since he was a kid. Everything was perfect. Or, I thought it was. Sandra walked in, looked at the table, and said, "Oh, I already ate." I wasn't sure dinner would be ready on time. Just like that. Then she added, "Do you have anything without dairy?" "I've stopped eating it." I smiled. Of course I did. I reheated some vegetables I had made on the side, and pretended that it didn't bother me. But it did. And that was just the beginning. Small things. Subtle things. The way she answered questions meant for David. The way plans would suddenly exist. That I'd hear about at the last minute. And the way she smiled, while saying things that weren't quite kind. So if I reacted, I'd look like the problem. Too sensitive. Too emotional. And then, 14 months after they got married, David called me. It was a Tuesday evening. His voice felt rehearsed. Cold. Careful. He said Sandra believed my involvement in their life was unhealthy. Unhealthy. I remember that word clearly. Like it echoed. I asked him what that meant. He said, they needed space. Space turned into silence. Silence turned into 4 years. I won't pretend I handled it perfectly. I didn't. The first year. I called too much. Left voicemails. Sent birthday cards that were never acknowledged. Once. I even drove past their house. Just once. And the moment I did, I felt so ashamed of myself. I pulled into a gas station and sat there for 20 minutes. Just sitting. Staring. Trying to understand how I became a stranger to my own son. I was grieving. That's the only word for it. Grieving someone who was still alive. Just not in my life anymore. But somewhere in the second year, something in me changed. I stopped reaching. Not because I stopped loving him, but because every attempt was costing me something. My peace. My dignity. And I was running out of both. So I rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. But intentionally. I found a therapist. Joined a book club. Started walking every morning. Little by little. I built a life that didn't revolve around the absence of my son. And for the first time, I started to feel whole again. And then, my sister Ruth passed away. We were close. The kind of close only shared childhood creates. She never married, never had children. And when she died, she left me something I wasn't expecting. An inheritance. A large one. At first, I didn't know what to do with it. It just sat in my account, while I grieved her. A quieter grief this time, but still heavy. And then one day, I made a decision. I bought the lake house. 3 bedrooms. A quiet little place in northern Michigan. Nothing fancy. But the back porch? It looked straight over the water. And the kitchen window framed the trees like a painting. I paid for it in full. Didn't tell many people. Just Carol, who helped me move. And Helen, my old neighbor, who forwarded my mail. I don't use social media. Never have. I've never been interested in performing my life for anyone. I moved in early October. And by the next Monday, I knew I had made the best decision of my life. Morning coffee on the porch. Books in the afternoon. Home-cooked meals. Peaceful sleep. No anxiety. No heaviness. Just quiet. 3 weeks later, I saw the car. And just like that, the past came knocking again. I stood at the window, watching. The truck hadn't pulled in yet. It was waiting, at the edge, like it was testing something. David stepped out of the car first. Then Sandra. And then, a teenage girl. Someone I had never seen before. She stood near the car, looking at the house. Still, unreadable. And in that moment, I didn't panic. Not at all. What I felt was something else. Something colder. Something clearer. I knew exactly what this was. I had prepared for something like this. Not this exact moment, but the possibility of it. 2 months before I moved into the lake house, I had spoken to a property attorney. Not because I was paranoid, but because I believe in being informed. She explained everything. The difference between a guest and a resident. What happens when someone establishes legal presence in your home? What rights they gain? And, more importantly, what you lose. I listened carefully, took mental notes, and filed it away, like a spare key you hope you'll never need. That morning, I used it. I walked to the front door and opened it before they even reached the porch. David stopped the second he saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He looked older. A little heavier. A little tired. Like life had worn him down in ways I hadn't seen before. Sandra stood just behind him, smiling. Of course she was smiling. That told me everything. This wasn't desperation. This was a plan. Mom, David said. His voice, hesitant. David, I replied calmly. This is unexpected. He exhaled slightly. We should have called. Yes, I said. You should have. Sandra stepped forward. Confident. Controlled. Like she always did. We've been going through a really difficult time, she began. And just like that, the performance started. David's company had to downsize. We lost our lease. Things happened very quickly. She gestured subtly toward the house. With all this space, we thought maybe we could help each other. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I looked past her, toward the car. At the teenage girl still standing there, watching, quiet. Who is she? I asked. For the first time. Sandra hesitated. Just a flicker. Then she recovered. That's my daughter, she said smoothly. Emma. She's 15. I turned to David. You have a stepdaughter? I asked. He didn't look at me, just stared at the ground. We thought it would be easier to explain in person, Sandra added quickly. Still smiling. Always smiling. I see, I said softly. Then I looked back toward the moving truck. How long has it been rented? Just for today, she replied. And then, she almost said it. We just need to get you added to the... She stopped herself. Too late. Added to what? I asked. She pivoted instantly. Just arrangements, she said. We can talk about how to split things. You have extra rooms. David is your son. I raised my hand slightly. Not aggressively. Just enough. Sandra, I said quietly. The truck doesn't come up the driveway. Silence. Her smile stayed. But it changed. Sharpened. Margaret, let's not be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm being clear. I stepped forward slightly. This is my home. I bought it with my sister's inheritance. And no one in this family knew where I lived. I paused. Let that settle. So I'd really like to know. How did you find me? David finally spoke. Quietly. I called Helen. Of course. Helen. My neighbor. The one forwarding my mail. I inhaled slowly. Controlled. Filed it away. Then I said something very simple. I'd like the truck to leave. Sandra opened her mouth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just looked at her. Steady. And then I continued. The three of you can come inside. I'll make coffee. We can sit and talk. Like adults. A pause. But the truck goes first. Because I need you to understand something from the start. What you're planning is not happening today. For a second. No one moved. Then Sandra reached for her phone. Made a call. Short. Sharp. A few minutes later. The truck pulled away. Gone. Emma was still by the car. I caught her eye. Gave her a small nod. Something gentle. Reassuring. None of this was her fault. Inside. We sat in the living room. I made coffee. Put out some cookies. Because no matter what was happening, there was still a 15-year-old girl in my house. And she deserved normalcy. Emma took 3 cookies. Curled up quietly in the armchair. And looked out at the lake. And in that moment, I realized something. She was the only person in that room who wasn't pretending. Sandra started talking again. Explaining everything. David's business. 6 years of work gone. 1 contract lost, and everything collapsed. The lease. The financial pressure. The stress. And I listened. I really did. Because I'm not heartless. What they were going through was real. Hard. Painful. But something about it still felt off. When she finished, I leaned forward slightly. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course, she replied. If I had bought a 1-bedroom house, would you still be here right now? Silence. Of course, she said quickly. Your family. I shook my head gently. That's not what I mean. I held her gaze. You didn't contact me for 4 years. You made it very clear that I wasn't wanted in David's life. I paused, then said it plainly. And now, there's something here you need. Suddenly, I'm family again. The room went still. David shifted in his seat. Mom, I'm not angry, I said softly. And I meant it. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because if we're going to have any kind of relationship, it needs to start with honesty. Not this. Sandra didn't speak. For the first time since she arrived, she was quiet. I turned to David, and my voice softened. I want to help you. You're my son. That has never changed. But help doesn't look like a moving truck at my door. I leaned back slightly. If you need money to get back on your feet, I'll help. If you need contacts, I have them. I'll make calls. But I am not giving up my home. And I need you to be honest with yourself about what this was. David didn't argue, didn't defend. He just put his face in his hands. And in that moment, he didn't look like a man who came with a plan. He looked like someone completely exhausted. And then, from the armchair, a quiet voice spoke. I told her it was a bad idea. We all turned. Emma, still looking out at the lake. I said we shouldn't just show up, she continued. She said it would be fine. Because you'd feel guilty. The room froze. Emma, Sandra snapped. She asked for honesty, Emma said simply. And then, she took another cookie. And just like that, everything changed. There are moments in life that don't just pass. They shift everything. This was one of them. I looked at Emma. Really looked at her this time. A 15-year-old girl. Sitting quietly in a room full of adults. Telling the truth. Because no one else would. Thank you, Emma, I said gently. And something in the room changed. You could feel it. The tension didn't disappear. But it softened. Like the truth had cracked something open. Sandra leaned back slightly. For the first time since she walked in, she wasn't controlling the room. She wasn't performing. She wasn't smiling. She was just quiet. And in that quiet, I saw something different. Not the sharp, calculated woman I had known, but someone tired. Someone who had been holding everything together for too long, and maybe didn't know how to stop. She didn't apologize. Not directly. Not with words. But her posture changed. Her tone changed. And sometimes, that tells you more than an apology ever could. For a brief moment, I could almost understand. Not agree, but understand. Maybe life had taught her that if she didn't stay in control, everything would fall apart. Maybe she learned to calculate instead of trust, to manage instead of connect. I don't know her full story, and I've learned not everything needs to be understood to be handled correctly. So I focused on what mattered, the present, the reality. I sat up straighter and spoke calmly, clearly. This house is mine, I said. Legally. Completely. There's no arrangement where you live here. No anger. No hesitation. Just truth. But I continued. That doesn't mean I won't help. I turned to David. If you need a place to stay temporarily, I can help you find one. I know a property manager in Columbus. Someone who works with situations like yours. I also know a business attorney. Someone who's helped people rebuild after losses. I will call them. I paused, then added quietly. Not for Sandra. I looked at Emma. And not even just for you. Then back at David. But for you. And for her. Emma didn't say anything. But I noticed. She sat a little straighter. David nodded slowly. Still quiet. Still processing. And Sandra. She didn't argue. Didn't push. Didn't negotiate. Because somewhere deep down, she knew. The plan had failed. Not because I rejected them, but because I didn't abandon myself to accept them. That afternoon, they left. No moving truck. No boxes. No forced smiles. Just reality. David drove. Emma sat in the back seat. And just before the car pulled away, she rolled down the window and waved at me. I smiled and waved back. Sandra didn't look at me when she got in the car. And honestly, that was fine. We didn't owe each other warmth. Not yet. I stood in the driveway, watching that silver sedan disappear down the road until it was gone. Completely gone. And then, I went back inside. Back to my kitchen. Back to the window. Back to the lake. The water looked exactly the same. Calm. Still. Unaffected. Like none of it had happened. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. The world doesn't pause for our chaos. It keeps moving. Steady. Unbothered. And maybe, that's a good thing. That evening, I made a phone call. Not out of fear. Not out of panic. But out of clarity. I called my property attorney. Documented everything. The visit. The conversation. The intention behind it. She listened carefully. Then said something I'll never forget. Most people in your situation, she said, either shut the door completely, or let people walk right through it. She paused. What you did was harder. You opened the door, but you didn't move. And that's power. Weeks passed. And then, David called. Not the stiff, rehearsed calls from years ago. Not the ones where you can hear someone else in the room. Real calls. Sometimes long. Sometimes short. Sometimes just to say something simple like, I saw something today that reminded me of you. We were careful with each other. Gentle. Like two people learning how to walk again. After forgetting how. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And that was enough. 3 weeks later, I got a message from Sandra. Short. Simple. I know I owe you more than this. But I don't know how to say it yet. Working on it. I read it twice. Then I replied, I know. I'm not going anywhere. A month after that, Emma sent me a photo. A small creek. Somewhere near Columbus. Nothing like the lake. But the sunlight hit the water just right. And I knew. She saw it. Thought of me. And decided to reach out. I printed that photo. Put it on my refrigerator. Right next to a painting my sister Ruth made years ago. A quiet shoreline. Soft colors. Peaceful. Some mornings, I stand at that same kitchen window, coffee in hand, and I think about that day. All the ways it could have gone. If I had panicked. If I had said yes out of guilt. If I had let that truck come up the driveway. Because he was my son. And sometimes, love makes us forget ourselves. I think about that version of me. The one who would have said yes. The one who would have slowly lost her space, her peace, her voice. And I feel something unexpected. Not regret, but gratitude. Because those 4 years of silence taught me something I never knew before. What I was worth. And how to protect it. I didn't get my son back that day. By opening the door. I got him back. By standing in it. Honestly, if I were in that situation, I'd like to believe I'd do the same. But the truth? It takes strength to say no to the people you love. Especially when they expect you to say yes. What would you have done? Would you have let them stay? Or stood your ground like she did? Let me know in the comments.